It's time to start looking at the equipment we use when we are painting. For this session, let's examine the brushes. First up, we should name the bits that make up our brush. The first obvious bits are the handle and the bristles, and then there's the metal bit that attaches the bristles to the handle, and it is called the ferrule, and the ferrule holds onto the handle by the crimp. Sections of the bristle have their own names. The bit closest to the ferrule is the heel, and the other end is the toe, and the bit between the heel and the toe is the belly. So now when we are talking about using the brush, we can refer to the parts and know what we're talking about. Different brush types are suitable for different paint media. The ones most used for painting in egg tempera are the brushes most used for painting watercolour, round and flat. Flat brushes are good for covering large areas quickly, but a large round brush can also do the job, so flat brushes are not essential. So we'll look more closely at the round brushes. Sets of round brushes are readily available in art stores and $2 shops. However, these are most likely synthetic brushes, and they will do the job but not nearly as well as natural hair brushes. There are several advantages with natural hair brushes. Firstly, their belly holds more paint and therefore they don't need to be reloaded as often. Secondly, they will start at a point and can return to a point at the end of a stroke, so this can produce beautifully shaped curves. There are two natural hair brushes. The firmer bristle is Kolinsky and the softer one is Squirrel. I find Squirrel the more useful, but Kolinsky is very helpful for painting detailed work because the bristles are firmer. As a helpful hint for picking up the right brush you want, remember the Squirrel is a black hair and the Kolinsky is a lighter brown hair. Having given synthetic brushes a bad name earlier on, I do have to admit that synthetic Squirrel brushes are pretty good. They can also be very inexpensive. The next thing to consider is how we use our brushes when painting with egg tempera. Using a good brush for mixing pigment with egg tempera is problematic. Some pigments are quite gritty, and using fine hair to mix could shorten the life of the brush. And for this reason, using a mortar and pestle for the initial mixing of paints is a wise move. If we only need a very small amount and would prefer to mix on a tile or a palette, getting to work with an old brush could help protect our good and expensive brushes. Having said this, there is still a need to mix the paint with our good brush each time we load the brush. This is to ensure that any pigment that has sunk to the bottom of the mixture is caught up again into the whole mixture again. My preference is to paint with a fairly dry brush, which necessitates wiping off the paint on the side of the palette or the dish 17 or more times. And this gives the artist greater control over the brush and a lighter coat of paint, and also dries more quickly, and we can get back to work on the next coat more quickly. Despite having wiped off the brush so thoroughly, the belly of a natural hair brush retains a good amount of paint. Next, let's think about caring for our brushes. A new brush needs to have the protective size washed off. This is not a big deal. It can be done quite simply by rinsing it well in clean water. And it's a good idea to wet a dry brush before painting so that there is water up in the furrow rather than getting paint stuck up there. A painting session will invariably involve using several different brushes. Do not leave a brush in the water jar. It can misshape the bristle. Also, the sharp edge of the metal ferrule is pushed up against the fine hairs of the brush and can damage it. Use a brush stand or lay the wet brush down on kitchen paper. Cleaning is, of course, important. If we have had to use any acrylic in the mixture to help break the surface tension when painting onto gold, it's very important to wash the brush very thoroughly in warm water immediately, because acrylic dries quickly and it is mucky. Doing a proper clean after a painting session is also important. Warm soapy water works well. There are also a number of commercial brush cleaners available at art supply stores. One cleaning recipe involves cider vinegar. To clean watercolour paintbrushes using cider vinegar, I have read, says first rinse the bristles in cool water, submerge the brush in warm diluted cider vinegar, that is 1 part water, 1 part vinegar, and do this for 10 minutes. Gently massage out the pigment, wash with mild soap and water, and reshape to dry. Reshaping a good round brush is easily done by giving the wet brush a flick from the wrist. The point is then magically restored. This is also a helpful tip for reshaping a brush whose bristles has been bent. Dip the brush in boiling water for about 3 seconds and give it a flick with the wrist. This straightens the bristle and restores the point. Another tip for caring for brushes is that we need to combat little beasties who like eating natural hair. Storing brushes with repellent like mothballs can save a lot of heart-wrenching damage. Where can we buy our brushes? Russia produces really very good natural hair brushes. I have a set, but I did have to travel to St. Petersburg and Moscow to get them. Art supply stores do have excellent brushes, particularly from Europe, but these are and can be very expensive. The Rosemary Brush Company in the United Kingdom provides good value, excellent Kolinsky and Squirrel brushes. And I like their Series 22 for Kolinsky and Series 42 for the Squirrel. For choosing sizes, I would suggest beginning with a 0 or a 1, and then a 3 for Kolinsky, and about a 3 or 4 and an 8 or larger for Squirrel. For synthetic squirrel brushes, I'm liking the Falling series from China, available on Amazon. I haven't said much about flat brushes. I use flat brushes for applying the Kollner Instacold base for gilding, because it gives a nice smooth surface, and also for applying acrylic varnish when the icon is thoroughly dry. And for this I choose a synthetic soft and fairly small flat brush, and these are readily available from art supply stores and even from $2 shops. So that's about all I have to say about brushes for painting egg tempera.